What is up, guys? Walo J here, and I'm here with my co-host.
Just me again.
Oh, dude, you gotta do better.
Nope.
All right. Anyway, that's Chris, our producer and co-host. Also on the phone with us is award-winning journalist Lilia Luciano. Lilia, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for the invite, Walo. It's an honor to be with you.
Oh, no, the honor is actually ours because, you know, we're not pros or anything, but, you know, the situation down in the islands got me a little, you know, concerned. And I've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks with Chris. And I'm like, we need to have somebody that has a better understanding of what's going on down there. Because, you know, the news that we get here, you know, sometimes it's not the full case. Now, we know that you're not down in the island, but you've been following exactly what's going on, and you have a better outlook than we can project to the guys that listen to our show.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I've been following everything. I'm obviously very passionate about what goes on in Puerto Rico, as I'm sure you are. Both of us, I think you were born and raised there too. And then, you know, when you leave, you kind of, your heart stays there. And as a journalist, to me, like to every Puerto Rican, it was important that the story would get out. So I've been doing the best I can to, from far away, gather as much information and as much of the news that I can, and kind of digest it in a way that's, you know, simple and straightforward, with enough context for people to understand the meaning and the importance of these protests that were taking place in Puerto Rico for the past couple of weeks.
Now,
and of course, the ultimate resigning of the governor.
Definitely, yeah, that was the main thing. They wanted him out. When the chat pages were leaked, what were your first thoughts on that?
Oh man, you know, to be very honest, I was so shocked because you know, some of the worst comments came from the island CFO, and I've known that guy since like the 8th grade. So
no kidding.
Yeah. You know, we grew up with the same group of friends, so I know him. I just saw him at my sister's wedding. So I was really shocked and appalled and was like, what are you thinking, man? And how can people just be so comfortably cruel and aggressive and just homophobic? And it's like, wow, it's so far away from the kind of person, you know, I think he is or thought he was, and just kind of, you know, the overall thing is just, it was so embarrassing and really hard to read through, you know. It's just filled with all this arrogance from the governor and his peers. And, you know, what's happened after that leak was that you know, not only did you see how these people express themselves about the people of Puerto Rico, about political figures, about political opponents, about celebrities and artists and journalists, but also how they were manipulating public opinion through the media. I had seen some clips and some I guess viral or content that had gone viral after Maria, talking about how there was this kind of network of, you know, conspirators who were controlling power and money and misplacing public funds around Ricky Rosselló. But the chat was the thing that confirmed it. You know, up until that point, it was kind of like, you know, word of mouth and what people suspect and what everybody talks about. And of course, connecting the governor of Puerto Rico, who still is governor until next Friday, with his father's administration that was incredibly corrupt when I was growing up in the island. So everything was kind of like, well, you suspect that this is how it goes down. But then when you read through the leaked text, you're like, oh, wow. So, you know, yeah, that's exactly how it was working.
Yeah, you're referring to what they call the institutional mafia, I guess.
Yeah,
that's what they
called it. Yeah,
they branded themselves the institutional mafia.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's really sad because this is coming. You know, this is coming after or throughout, and it was happening during the time that Puerto Rico was the most vulnerable, during Maria and after Maria. And, you know, as you know, and as everybody by this point knows, the loss of life, and the mismanagement of supplies and resources, the poor management overall of the crisis that I think to a great degree or to a high degree people had been attributing to Ricardo Rosselló's lack of experience. But when you realize that a lot of that had to do with just kind of public opinion, with just there was more intention, than I think we all suspected. We all suspected that there was this person who just didn't know how to do things, and neither did the people he was surrounded himself with. Now we're seeing that there was kind of ill intent with a lot of the funding, not necessarily the Maria funding, but, federal funds when it came to education at a time when his administration was closing down schools, at a time when the island is under so much pressure by the Fiscal Control Board. And so here you have this institutional mafia that's just channeling, and pushing contracts to their friends and making money off of the money of the people. And so I think, people just got to that boiling point and said, hey, never again and not anymore. And hasta aquí. It stops here. Right.
I saw something where you were talking about the contracts where Elias Sanchez was, he's a lobbyist, I guess. And he was giving preferential treatment to his clients, giving them these government contracts. And I heard, I don't know if this is true. This is just what I'm reading and what I'm listening.
Yeah.
But that he was getting a kickback of 25% of whatever contracts he was getting. And I guess
I read somewhere up to 50%. I mean,
50.
I can't report on something that I haven't.
Right.
That I haven't investigated. I have not investigated any of that. I would refer people back to the Center for Investigative Journalism in Puerto Rico, Centro de Periodismo Investigativo. Their website is both in English and Spanish, so I'm sure those articles, if somebody is listening and doesn't speak Spanish, you can also read it in English. They've done a very thorough investigation. They've talked to dozens and dozens of people who were working directly within that whole scheme. And so, I don't want to talk about something that I haven't reported on myself or investigated. But what they have broken has been just this network, a very clear network of, and showing the kind of influence that Elias had, where they interviewed people, and there have been people who've come forward, heads of departments who have come forward and said, actually, he came to me and did pressure me to pick up one of his clients. And he was, the best man in the wedding of Ricardo Rosselló. They're compadres, they're like best friends, family. They were. Well,
he was his campaign
roommates.
manager.
He was his campaign manager.
Yeah.
So here you're seeing something that's been orchestrated. And it's funny because, one of the conversations that's been ongoing, I think in Puerto Rico for a long time, but that has kind of resurfaced now. It's like, why was Ricardo Rosselló governor? Like, what kind of public, office experiences did this person have? Any public sector experience? None. He was basically a scientific researcher. And he just decided, or someone decided, to throw him in there as governor. And it was, no pun intended, but the perfect storm, because he did have to handle the worst storm in the history of Puerto Rico, the most, devastating hurricane that we've had. So it kind of brought up to light just the lack of experience, and not just the lack of experience, but we've seen the strings. The veil has been lifted to reveal who's manipulating, who's pulling the strings, who's benefiting from all of that, that scheme that started before he ran for office. Because, why is he governor? Besides because of his last name.
Right, I was just going to say.
The fact that he was, the son of Pedro Rosselló, who was governor for 2 terms.
Right, most of the 90s, correct?
Exactly, yeah, my whole childhood. I think back in my childhood, and what I remember was his administration. And also what resonates is the amount of members of his cabinet and heads of departments and officers around him who ended up going to prison.
I believe it was
very
40.
Serious corruption charges. Well, 40 people were charged. I can't remember the number of, how many actually ended up serving time, but it was really high. That is just unheard of, until you look at his son's administration and the path that has started now.
It looks like they're all going to jail.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at how many people have resigned, there's dozens right now. And of course, now you have, the former Secretary of Education, the Executive Director of the Healthcare Administration, the Health Insurance Administration, both, charged with very serious corruption crimes or corruption-related crimes, money laundering and fraud. It's just, it's the kind of thing that hurts the most to the people now, because you're coming from, Puerto Ricans are still very much traumatized. The amount of devastation, loss of human life, loss of property, destruction of infrastructure that actually happened because of mismanagement and the debt crisis and the pressure exerted by the Fiscal Control Board to handle that debt crisis, which was imposing all of these extreme austerity measures that people just were feeling, desperate about. And so on top of that, you throw this and you're like, wait a second, these people, what world are they living in? How come there's so much money to go around when there is so much need? When you still have houses that don't even, that still have those blue tarps in Puerto Rico because, FEMA funds haven't arrived. And now FEMA has decided, hold on, let's take a step back. We can't send these federal funds to Puerto Rico because of the issues with leadership that are happening now. So it's all continuing. The people of Puerto Rico are the ones that are paying, that are enduring the loss and the consequences of these actions.
Well, the one that's still concerning because Wanda Vasquez is supposed to be his successor, but she's also being investigated, to my understanding.
Yeah, she's also being investigated. She has not just too many skeletons in the closet, but skeletons out of the closet. I mean, she's already had cases in the past for influence peddling and manipulating and using prosecutors under her to get her way and get personal favors. But now the biggest issue is that the truth is coming out about how she actively avoided investigating the Rosselló administration. Yesterday, there were a series of leaked chats, more chats that are out, showing how she would tell, department heads, hey, don't send that stuff my way because I don't want to handle it. I don't want to have to deal with it and investigate it. When it came to things like Unidos for Puerto Rico and the governor's wife's
the first lady,
post Maria, the first lady's post Maria initiative. It's just, it's the kind of figure that has been described as the central figure because so much responsibility over investigating the corruption and so much of looking the other way was happening around her or was happening actively, from her. Also, another issue is that, people are starting to learn about now is that her advisor for a very long time was Elias's wife.
Oh,
so
my God.
That's how close, like her direct, right hand advisor person for a very long time was Valerie Rodriguez, who, again, I have to say, man, I also know very well. I grew up with her. We went to high school together. She was friends with my friends.
Man, what's up with your friends?
So, in full disclosure, I happen to go to Perpetuo Socorro, which is a great school, awesome education, but there's a lot of concentrated wealth and, concentrated wealth in Puerto Rico, you've got to look back at how that wealth becomes concentrated. But anyway, that's when that comes out is when you start realizing, oh, wow, how tight knit this group of people is and how many people were, just literally in bed with each other. Literally, we're talking about, the guy running the campaign is married to the advisor of this woman who's appointed as Secretary of Justice, who's looking the other way, not, investigating the very people who put her there. And it's just kind of not, based on merit, but based on favors and palas, as we call it. It's la palas. It's been like that. I remember, I grew up in a popular household. My grandmother was a senator for El Partido Popular, for the Democratic Popular Party. I'm just kind of directly translating that. Yeah. The Commonwealth Party or pro-Commonwealth Party. And so, and my mom was popular, and I remember like every 4 years when elections came around, everybody was shaking because, if the PNPs won, then my mom wouldn't have a job, because that's what happens. It's like people get appointed and then they would get rid of everyone who doesn't belong to the party in power. And I think that is the primary thing that right now, it's one of the primary things that people are, that I hope is going to change, that people are actually saying, you know what, we're sick of these two parties. It's the same thing, for both. There's corruption on both sides. And we're sick of like just the switch in power, where people are asked to step up and lead, not because of their merit, not because of their knowledge or experience, but because of political favors, and who they're around.
Yeah.
And, I think right now with, I think the person who's being talked about, that might be appointed as, Secretary of State. I mean, it's between two people from what I've read. It's either Tomás Rivera Chats, the president of the Senate, or Pierluisi, who was running against Rosselló and lost the primaries. He was a favorite of the party before, and it is a guy who is too close to the junta, and people are worried about that. The junta being the Fiscal Control Board, because his brother-in-law is has a leadership position there. But is someone who I think, and this is just anecdotally so, and I don't live in the island, and to be honest, I read Al Nuevo Dia as much as possible, but not every day.
Yeah.
But he seems to have more trust from the people and certainly has a lot more experience than Rosselló, and is not part of that, very tight-knit group of, Elias Sanchez and the governor and Wanda and all that. So the governor appoints this guy, Pierluisi, as Secretary of State. You might get a little bit more of an appeased crowd, although not entirely trusting, because we're still talking about one of the two major parties.
Do you think that the protests will still go on if they don't like the fact that that person gets put in power?
Man, I think if Wanda assumes that position of governor, I think the protests will for sure continue. I can't say it for sure, of course, but yeah. I suspect, because then from what I've heard and from what I've seen in social media, how people just picked the Wanda renuncia hashtag right back up.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Like immediately. It was immediate. Because of that, I do, I think that if it is Wanda, they might resume. I don't know about Pierluisi, that might buy people some time and just wait for the election and perhaps, vote for one of those independent candidates like Lugaro, who had 12% of the votes, I'm not endorsing her or anything. I don't vote in Puerto Rico right now, but she, I remember it was kind of revolutionary in the way that you had a candidate who wasn't aligned with either of those two main parties and got such a high percentage of votes. That's kind of unheard of. Now
that you bring her up, I saw a video with him yesterday and David Begnog from CBS News.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, he interviewed Manuel Nadal. I saw that. That was a great interview.
Correct. And her
partner.
He mentioned that there was possibly 30 heads of departments that were deep in corruption.
Yeah.
So how do we know for sure? I mean, it seems like it's so deep that we don't know which way is up.
What I think is there needs to be fresh blood. There needs to be people who aren't there because of balas, because of nepotism, because of because the same structures of power decided that this is the person that needs to be there in order for us to continue concentrating wealth and resources. So I think people will not stand down and look the other way. I think Puerto Ricans have gone through and have shown that level of resilience. Puerto Ricans have shown what they're made of, and through Maria, and have only grown stronger and more skeptical of those institutions and more skeptical of corruption. And are going to demand that there is accountability. And when that happens, I'm sure that not just anyone is going to be able to step up and say, hey, guys, I'm going to tell you what's right for you. I think Puerto Ricans are like, no, we know what's right for us. We're done being silent and apathetic. we are going to take charge and we're going to take down. And I think that was the message that came from these marches. We're going to take down whoever is not in the best interest of el pueblo, of the people of Puerto Rico. Those are my hopes. I think it's part of a new generation that didn't grow up skeptical. I feel like my parents' generation was part of a generation that saw, and, not to blame them, but they actually witnessed the persecution and prosecution of dissenting voices. I mean, they saw what happened with, you went to Festival de Claridad and you would get the FBI on your back just for going to a festival in the island. You had, those things would obviously, threaten and scare people, and grew any different voices quieter. And so I think now you have greater liberty and access because of social media to new messaging and new leadership, whatever that looks like, across the range of politics, all the way from right to left, left to right, whatever that looks like. I think there's going to be more options and there's more skepticism, and I think Puerto Ricans are going to, try to hold the powerful accountable. Right now, today I saw this legislator from Carolina on Facebook. Somebody sent me this post of this fake New York, this clip art, fake New York Times cover that somebody had made, pretending like the New York Times was showing the perreo in front of la catedral, people dancing.
Yeah, I saw that.
And some woman topless, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that's the image that Puerto Ricans show the world." The dumbest, most fake news clip art montage. And you had someone, I'm not sure, I can't confirm whether or not, I'm trying to find out if this is actually this person's Facebook page, but what looks like a municipal legislator's Facebook page posting that and saying, "Oh, look at what the perreo did, look at what the revolution did." And it's like, dude, I mean, you can't spread fake news and not get caught, not be called out for it. So I think there is more accountability. People are looking around and knowing when the information that's being spread is false. Now they know how the, organisms in power would manipulate the media to send their own messages. And so, I think there's a different kind of public discourse after this whole thing.
So I grew up in the 80s, and I was always a little scared of the government, itself, because of what was going on in the news. At the time, El Cerro Maravilla was big on the news, and between 80, 84. And I was a kid. And to me, that always stayed in my head that if they can do that, I mean, they can to those people, they can do it to me. And that's what I'm talking about. And the younger generations of Puerto Ricans who didn't, people in their 20s who didn't grow up with Cerro Maravilla, and who are like, no, if that happens, we're going to go out there and we're going to change things, and we're going to take down whoever. I mean, Romero Barceló would have never survived that in 2019. Yeah, there was no social media back then.
There was no social media.
Yeah.
Now there's people demand, accountability and demand transparency. And, I think there's a shift, in the era of, those in power know best, and we best look the other way or, lose whatever little we have. I don't think that's the case anymore. And I think it's not just in Puerto Rico. I think Puerto Rico is a beautiful example for the rest of the world. And that's what every newspaper that I've seen and, magazine and columns are addressing, are saying, "Oh, wow, look at what Puerto Rico did." It's like I get chills thinking about, wow, that's my people. That's where I come from. That this tiny, 100 miles by 35 miles, 4 million people island. It's not even 4, right? It's 3.2 at this point.
I believe it's 3.2, yeah.
Yeah, 3.4 million people in an island are able to, to teach, to educate, if not just inspire the rest of the world on how you organize in a peaceful, and it was such a happy way too. I mean, I feel like this is the happiest revolution protest that I've ever seen, without violence, without deaths, without weapons.
Right,
not a single
gunshot, nothing.
man, not a single gunshot. The only ones shooting those rubber bullets were, the police. And even that, like, it was bad for a few days, but I think they realized, like, hey, we need to stand back because this is stronger than us. Like, we can't be defending the one losing guy here.
It's like the worst thing that I saw was a little graffiti on the wall saying Ricky renuncia.
Yeah.
But, a little coat of paint and we're good.
Right. And then the next day you would see people from Old San Juan and people from the whole island going around and cleaning out and painting. And, that's part of expressing, that's part of expressing the message that people want to get out. So yeah, it's really inspiring. I think we're definitely educating.
It's a little embarrassing, to have so much corruption coming out of our home, out of our island.
But you know what? But honestly, like, if you look at the States, it's the same. It's just more legal. I mean, the super PACs that donate, quietly and anonymously so much money to political campaigns, it's the same thing. It's just that in the States, it's massive, but it's legal. It
happens everywhere. Yeah, for sure.
But it happens, and it happens in every country. It's just, we've been really loud.
What brought me joy was to see that they didn't care if you were a PNP, Popular, Independentista.
That was really important. Yeah.
They all got together and they marched together.
Yeah, that was really important.
Yeah, that was.
I noticed that, someone like Residente, who's very much considered and known as kind of, left of center figure, very vocal about his pro-independence stance. He was like, guys, this is not political. Yeah. Leave your party flags outside. If you're a Estadista, if you're pro-statehood, please come. Like, this is not about that. That conversation, we'll have it later when there is a clean democracy. Right now, let's just get this, this corruption out.
I mean,
this abuse of power out.
Did you ever, think that this could happen? Like, us coming together as one. I mean,
not in a million. Growing up, when I was growing up, no. Now, from what I've seen in the past few years, and especially after Maria, for sure.
Right. I'm the same way. I was always skeptical. It's like, when are they going to wake up? Because I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. I've been here for 23 years. I go back every once in a while, but like you, I live in the States. So, So it was great to see.
23 years. I've been here for I've been in the States for 17 maybe. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very different Puerto Rico, man. It's a lot of courage, a lot of resilience, a lot of irreverence too,
And when I saw the chat being leaked, I heard the first, what they were saying and all that stuff, and I was like, okay, yeah, that maybe they shouldn't be acting that way. But then when it got deeper, that's when I started paying more attention because, the allegations of corruption and all that came out.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like glued to the TV, social media, trying to find out as much as I could. And then I came across your videos, which were great because they explained they explained everything within, a matter of 5 minutes. And then I went back and saw your Puerto Rico Rises, which was great.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you saw that. I'm glad you watched that. I tried to bring, context and history and, and the reality that was happening there at the time together for that project. And I'm glad it's been enough. A lot of people have seen it. So that's fulfilling.
What do you think of Carmen Yulín as a possible runner for 2020?
I have no idea where that stands. I've seen from all sides that there's a lot of resistance to her.
Yeah.
I think, it's not just Trump that doesn't like her.
Does Trump like anybody?
From a lot of, what was that?
Does Trump like anybody?
Anybody who says something good about him. I do think, I do feel like she's kind of problematic for some reason. I don't know enough. I really don't know enough. But what I've seen, at least on social media and talking to people in the island from across the political spectrum, is that she's not, the most beloved or trusted figure. And I to be honest, I would be lying if I tried to presume or assume why, because I haven't done that kind of research.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you so much. Before we let you go, do you want to plug
Thank you.
anything as far as, your charity or anything that you're working on?
Well, I'm a journalist. I work at ABC 10 in Sacramento. I do all kinds of reporting. Some stories are global, some stories are national, some stories are hyper local in Sacramento. And so check out our content. We have a really cool enterprise team here at ABC 10. And all of my stories are out there. I share everything on Facebook and on Instagram and on Twitter. And, the whole thing is about holding the powerful accountable and hopefully having a more equitable world.
Well, I'm following for sure, and I will let everybody know to follow you. Journalist from San Juan, Puerto Rico, Lilia Luciano. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Walo. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Have a good one.
You too.
Really?
There you have it, folks. Lilia Luciano. She's from San Juan, Puerto Rico. She works for ABC 10. She's an award-winning journalist, guys. So, props to us for getting her on. Chris, what are you doing, bro?
Sorry.
You got sidetracked over there?
Yeah, I got little fire. It's like I told you earlier, man. Work's been fun this week. So
Oh, okay.
I got a little fire that I'm handling behind me. So
for those of you that don't know Lilia, she was awarded the Walter Cronkite for excellence in journalism. So, follow her. She's really good.
check it out.
And she's from Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. Bro, that was heavy.
That was heavy. I got a text message saying, I love that you're just chilling this entire episode. Ha ha ha.
Who said that? Your dad?
No, I don't have their, I think it was Brandon. I don't have his number
okay.
saved, but I think it was Brandon. I was like, LOL. I was like, what do I got to add? I'm just a white dude who likes gardening and jokes.
I saw your face when she mentioned Trump.
I laughed.
I was like, oh, here comes Chris. Here comes Chris.
Nah.
Is he going to say something? Is he going to say something?
No.
All right, guys. So we cut the podcast short here because this is where we stopped talking to Lilia. We wanted to keep that separate. So we are actually uploading 2 episodes today. The first one, obviously, with Lilia Luciano. And the next one is basically the remaining of that podcast, which it got a little vulgar. So we wanted to switch it up and just keep her side of the interview clean and not mess it up and taint it. Anyway, thank you.